Hello there and welcome to Africa Today. I am Mike Okwoche. When Nelson Mandela passed on in December 2013, many said South Africa was at an economic and political crossroad. Barely a month into post-Mandela South Africa, there are growing frustrations as many live in conditions that reflect a widening gap between the rich and the poor. More than 70,000 workers went on strike last Thursday over pay rise at the Anglo-American, Impala and Lonmin mines, three of the country's largest producers of platinum. Now, this is the biggest strike since the 2012 protest in Marikana, where 34 miners were shot dead by the police. Now, in latest developments, union officials say negotiations with employers are ongoing. But what do you make of the industrial action by mine workers in South Africa? Share your thoughts with us on Twitter at TVC Africa Today, or send an email to africatoday@tvcnews.tv. We'll take this report now, and Africa Today will continue. Thanks for joining.
South African Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union AMCU say its members in the platinum sector embarked on an indefinite strike last Thursday. Most of those workers taking part in the strike are said to be working deep underground as rock drill operators. The union is demanding a living wage of about 12,500 rand, which is $1,200 more than double their current pay. Government brokered talks between AMCU and the world's top 3 platinum producers is ongoing in a bid to end a strike that has hit half of global output of the precious metal. The mining companies insist they cannot afford the pay increase because of high production cost and low demand. Unlike the Marikana strike that had 34 people shot by the police last year, the walkout by the platinum workers is legal. All 3 companies, Anglo-American, Impala and Lonmin Platinum, have confirmed receiving official notices of strike action from the union. AMCU replaced the National Union of Mine Workers as the biggest union in the platinum sector during the Marikana protest. Mine workers criticized the NUM, which is affiliated to the governing African National Congress, of being too friendly with business. As President Jacob Zuma and the ANC prepare for elections in April, many say the party cannot afford the negative publicity a strike would bring. The ANC was sharply criticized for not doing enough to prevent the Marikana massacre. Hopes for an immediate resolution to the strike, which began last Thursday, remain dim, given AMCU's uncompromising approach to negotiations and with the 2 sides poles apart over wages.
Right, South Africa supplies 70% of the world's platinum. Now, it is believed that with the ongoing strikes, revenue and business confidence in the country's mining industry will be hampered. Now, to discuss the wage dispute in the South African mining sector, we have GT Ogunye, a lawyer and human rights activist. It's good to see you, and it's good to have you in our studio.
Yes, my pleasure to
And Happy New Year.
Yes, thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
All right, and later on the show, we'll be linking up with Jacques Botha, a mining expert and chief economist at the African Foresight Network in South Africa. Now, let's start it this way. Too many strikes, quite often, miners, labor unions, and so on in South Africa. What's your assessment of the continuous or incessant strikes in South Africa?
Well, from a theoretical point of view, labor and capital are always perpetually in conflict.
Okay.
And workers are always interested, they are always enamored of shaking off the gyves, the shackles of wage slavery.
Yes.
And so it's in the interest of workers to exact as much benefit as they can get from the employer of labor. So from that theoretical perspective, what's going on in South Africa is not extraordinary. Now, when the living wage can no longer cater for the worker looks up to his union for salvation, and the union's responsibility is to take charge of that situation and negotiate with the employers of labor to get more benefits for the workforce. Now, what is, however, peculiar in South Africa in recent times is that in spite of the fact that during the apartheid era, the trade unions, principally COSATU, Congress of South African Trade Union, was a strong pillar of the anti-apartheid forces, the United Democratic Front movement fighting apartheid. In recent times, there's been a kind of schism, tension between labor on the one hand and the owners of mines, and government not doing enough to protect the interest of the workers. Now, in your intro, you referenced the Marikana massacre, in which 34 miners died. And when I watched the footage on television, I was very sad. Sad because I was wondering, was this Sharpeville? Was this Soweto massacre? So why should this happen
sort of war,
in a democratic South Africa? And it was a big shame that that kind of thing indeed happened in South Africa. Now, I think that government in South Africa has to be concerned that, look, this is not just about workers making demand on their employers of labor. These are also South Africans, many of them who had high hopes and expectations during the apartheid regime that, look, post-apartheid, it will be El Dorado.
Exactly.
In the same vein, I can liken it to what happened in Nigeria. During the military era, it was fashionable for people to just think that the military was the foe, it was the problem.
Exactly.
Once we had civil rule,
everything would be okay.
It's not happened so in Nigeria, and it's not happening so in South Africa. And so government needs to instill confidence in governance, instill confidence in labor relations, industrial relations, so that government can be seen to be working for the people, that it's not abandoned the people to the capital that is always interested in maximizing profit
and exploiting labor
at the expense of labor.
Now, let me ask, you talked about a living wage. What is actually a living wage, and what is the living wage supposed to cater for?
A living wage is not, there is no fixation on what's a living wage. It's contextual.
Okay.
But there is a level below which a worker is not expected to fall. Exactly. The basics. He's going to feed, he's going to clothe himself, he's going to be sheltered, he's going to cater for the children and all that. But the context here of what is a living wage is that if the employer of labor is making so much profit and the worker is earning so little, of course, there's a natural tendency for the workers to say that you making so much profit and we're earning so little, why should we be stagnated while you're making a lot of your profit is phenomenal, and so we are stagnated. And so the tendency is that they will then, up the ante, as it were, escalate their demands and then say, look, we need a living wage. So when we talk about living wage, there is no fixation here. It's something that moves up and down depending on the circumstances of the situation.
Okay. Now, joining us on phone is Jacques Botha from South Africa. Jacques, it's good to have you join us now. Now, what is the latest in the platinum miners' strike in South Africa? You are there right now. Can you give us any update? What have you been listening to?
It's actually very low-key now in South Africa. The parties are all trying to play hard to get. There's a very big divide between what the two sides want. And actually the one side is not just, the one side is actually quite powerful. It's got the big business on it, and that side, and government, and then also the insiders of the rival trade union, NUM, which used to be the strongest union in South Africa. And you also used to be the monopolize the platinum industry. Now they are in partnership with the ANC government. They've been since the New South Africa have been a partnership in the ANC government. And AMCU has convinced the workers that COSATU is an elitist union, and they've now got the majority. And it's a battle for turf. It's whoever wins this battle it's actually going to be, it's a very serious battle. There's a lot at stake.
Okay. Now, in an environment of rising cost and seeming depressed global markets, do you think, from your assessment, that mine workers can really, in true terms, meet the wage demands?
No, not in true. No, not really. You've got to. Yeah, definitely not. The interesting thing is there was a strike in Northam. It's another platinum mine, which lasted quite a few months, and it's only been settled about 10 days ago. And that's where NUM, the National Union Mine Workers, Union of Mine Workers, which is the ANC ally, eventually settled with a mining company there. And the increase in wages there was between 8.5 and 9.5% increase. And the minimum wage, it's very unclear what exactly it was, but the minimum wage was about, the settlement was about, the average was about 8,000 Rand, but the lowest, the surface workers' minimum wage is 7. Now, AMCU now wants 12,500. So there's a bit of a problem here because for a settlement, because NUM cannot be seen to have taken up a lower deal than what AMCU is going to get now, the opposition union. And this opposition union, so NUM, who is part of the government, will try their best and even assist the mining companies not to settle at a deal better for the worker than what NUM got at the other platinum mine, Northern. And that's really the crisis, the problem. AMCU, on the other hand, they've got to show their workers now, they've got to show their members now, they will get the best for them. The problem is it's the beginning of the year, there's been a lot of holiday expenses, and AMCU doesn't have a big cash coffer. It's a new union. So it seems that the tactic of government and the mines are to let the miners realize that they're running out of cash. And expectations are generally that, and if you look at the platinum price, that's very interesting. Normally if it's a big price like strike like this, this is more than 50% of global platinum production is now under threat, or is actually sort of standstill. 50% of global platinum production.
All right.
Yet the platinum price is actually falling. So what is the market saying? What are the insiders saying? Insiders say AMCU is not going to win this one.
All right, Jackie, let me ask you this. Looking at the conditions these people work and the hazards they're exposed to, would you say their demands are not justifiable?
Yeah, that's a problem. I've been actually about a year ago. I've been underground, a kilometer underground, in one of these platinum mines, and actually operating a rock drill. Now that is really living hell. And these guys, they work on shifts, but to sit there for 6 hours and just whirl underground in this heat, constricted space is really, really one of the toughest jobs I can think. It's like doing going into a war zone. Now, those guys, they deserve very high salaries. The problem is some of the workers, the people who just work upstairs and just pick up bolts and sweep the floors, and so AMCU wants everybody to earn a living wage of 12,500. Now, that's not what even blue-collar, entry-level university workers in South Africa would earn.
All right, Jacques, thank you very much. We'll come back to you on this again. Certainly. Stay online. We'll come back to you. We'll go on a short break, and then Africa Today continues shortly. Stay with us. All right, thank you very much for staying with us. It's still Africa Today. Now, in the past week, the South African currency dropped by 3.7%, leaving it at 11 Rand against the dollar. Now, many say the current platinum strike is partly responsible for that. We still have GT Ogunye with us in the studio. Now, let me ask, When it comes to disputes like this, industrial disputes, where does the law apply inside?
Well, I assume that because South Africa and Nigeria are countries of common law jurisdiction, largely in matters of labor and industrial relation disputes, they will have more or less the same mechanism for resolution. Okay. In Nigeria, you have the Trade Disputes Act, and I assume that in South Africa there will be something like that, legal framework for resolution of trade disputes. Strike is at the extreme. Sometimes, although the law is there and it provides for cancellation, for arbitration, for trade disputes adjudication at the third leg, workers may feel strongly that they should circumvent that and that they should rather flex their muscle at the workplace to cripple the work that they do and then inflict maximal damage, if you will, on the employer of labor so that the employer of labor can quickly dance to his tune. Yes, the law is there in trade dispute resolution arbitration, but usually when push gets to shove, the workforce is not too keen on, taking advantage of the law, believing that they will be slowed down and that in all likelihood, because of sheer legality, they might not get exactly what they want. Now, my view is that, even with the other, the strike, at the tail end of the day, you still have some kind of negotiation and discussion and rapprochement because the two sides need themselves. Now, when I was listening to the intervener from South Africa, the impression I got is that he's saying, look, when you pose the question, whether these demands are justifiable, the demands of the miners, he's saying, look, the price of platinum has fallen, there are problems here and there. In other words, in a nutshell, he was coming across as suggesting that the mine owners may not be able to meet the wage increase demands of the workers. But the point is that workers are not unreasonable people. Sometimes there's this assumption that workers are rabid, they are intolerant, they are unreasonable, they are not rational. They are rational. Look, if in the course of negotiation, workers are, taking into confidence, say, this is what the situation is and all that, and they realize that they share a common destiny as far as, wage, labor is concerned,
exactly.
that they don't need to kill these goose and all that. They will accede to the position of the employer, but when they see sincerity, when they see that when so much money was made yesterday, when the price of platinum had not fallen, that was not reflected in what they got, so they're not likely to listen this time around. And I think that they need to do a lot of talking to each other regardless of the strike, and I think that the government needs to provide that kind of an enabling environment for them to come together. Now, the other issue is that the trade union movement in South Africa now, and particularly appears to be factionalized. Right. A new trade union movement is budding, thinking that the mainstream one is in alliance with the ANC, and that therefore it's not pushing government hard enough and all that. So that is a factor, a critical factor that will be dealt with. But if you ask me, I will tell you that trade union solidarity, trade union togetherness is important in negotiating with government and the employers of labor.
All right, thank you. We still have Jacques Botha on the line from South Africa. Jacques, what if this strike persists? What is likely to be the effect on the economy of South Africa?
Well, the interesting thing is the currency is actually, if you read this morning, if you read the international press, even the weekend, the strike wasn't even mentioned South Africa is just one of the emerging markets that have just, but not as bad as Argentina. Argentina has fallen much, much worse. So the markets aren't really taking the strike too seriously. We've had too many strikes like these already, and they come and go. But this one is a bit of a serious one. This is 50% of global platinum production at stake. But the markets, as I said again, the markets actually do not think that this is going to be a long strike, because they think they actually have already, the platinum price has fallen. But also the unfortunate thing, or in a funny way fortunate, is that Anglo Plat, the biggest miner, have actually now given a profit warning of making incredibly good profits this year. So they cannot actually justify not to increase the wages. So I think this will be some of these strikes, because of the fact that at the beginning of the year, AMCU is a new union, the workers need money. They may last for 2 weeks or so, and then they'll have to go back and earn their money. But they expect, AMCU expects to show their workers they're getting a better deal than what NUM got 10 days ago at the northern strike, which the government and NUM would not want to allow, and maybe also, and I suppose also not the mining companies. So this could still lead to a very, very serious and angry conflict.
Okay.
Where AMCU needs to show that they're better than NUM, but the mine bosses say, well, we've got enough platinum above ground. We can wait this out. We've got cash, and you guys don't have cash.
All right. Let's look at this scenario. If, for instance, if the demands of these workers are met, is it likely that maybe that will put an end to platinum sector strikes in South Africa?
Yeah, if the demands are met, no, the demands won't be met. The demands are, that's always the situation here. Like in most places, I suppose, also Nigeria, unions demand much more initially. And but the problem is the break-even point is the AMCU wouldn't want to show that they're settling less than what NUM got at Northern. That's the problem. And those demands, what the best the mine bosses will do is to say, we'll give you the same as what we gave NUM. And AMCU will lose face if that happens. So, and it's a bit of a stalemate, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jacques Botha, for lending a voice in Africa today. Right. Now, the issue of the Marikana shootout in 2012 is one experience certainly so many Africans will not want to forget in a hurry. So how cautious should security personnel be at times like this?
You know, I think that in South Africa, and this may not be peculiar to South Africa, but I think that we're focusing on South Africa now. Security forces need to be very conscious of the rights of the citizenry, because in any case, they exist for the citizens. The citizens do not exist for them. And, you know, in terms of breaking strikes, breaking unrest, the force that is applied, and this standard language, you know, the force that is applied has to be proportionate to the resistance. So if security forces are not being shot at, there can be no justification for security forces to mow down protesters like grass. The footage that we watched on television was particularly disturbing because security agents, policemen were lined up. It was as if they were practicing the shooting range. Exactly. And they were shooting and they were killing people. And that was, you know, very, very horrendous. So I think they need a kind of new orientation moving forward. They need a kind of new orientation. The other day, you know, still in South Africa, and I know I'm not mistaken, there was an incident in a neighborhood, you know, rural district, where they were also talking about water. They've not had water. And the people in that rural community protested. Exactly. And of course, security people moved in and killed some of them. And so when all these, you know, are put together, the critical question that will be posed is, are we making progress in South Africa?
It's all right.
That's the question, and I think we should make progress, particularly now when the South Africa that we're discussing now is the South Africa that is called in science circles as the post-Nelson Mandela era. So we need
I will
to
look
see,
forward to a lot of positivity. Thank you very much for coming on the program today. Thank you.
Yeah,
and we also thank Jacques Botha for joining us from South Africa. Now, platinum firms in South Africa have claimed that the wage demand is too high and not sustainable. Now, workers have replied saying their standards of living are terrible and also not sustainable. Now, if the strike lingers, then it's no work, no pay for employees, with platinum mine employers losing as much as $9 million every striking day. Now, many hope an agreement will soon be reached and for the industrial action to end. Now, that's our show for today. Don't forget, you can also watch previous episodes of the show online at www.youtube.com/TVC Africa Today. And until we come your way again, I am Mike Okwoche. And don't forget, this is Africa. Bye for now.